We have Barbara Wall. We have
Here.
Eric Morset. Is Robert Poole available? And Al Silverstein, I'm here. So the meeting is officially called to order. First order of business is approval of the May 20, 2021 meeting minutes. Do I have any additions or corrections to the minutes as printed? If not, I take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Betty. Need a second, please?
I'll second it.
Second by Eric. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, ayes have it. Tony, it's yours.
Thank you, sir. I want to start off with some statistics dealing with Field Enforcement's Division enforcement efforts for the last month since the last meeting. I'll start off with the information that I've received from my head of my enforcement group. It appears there has been a significant increase in violations being found in the field and stores since the May 14th increase in the taxes for tobacco products. So the following is the activity we've had. We've had 61,466 sticks of OTP, other tobacco products, seized this past month. And there was a few significant seizures that we had. We had one seizure of 14,925 sticks, another one of 21,125 sticks of packages. So it's been a slight, not a slight increase, a big increase in the confiscations that we're seeing. There were a total of, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 13, 15 individuals cited for these violations in the past month. We had a total of 879 packs of unstamped cigarettes seized from investigations and inspections that we conducted over the month. 27 containers of distilled spirits that were purchasing other than a wholesaler. 76 containers of beer. 27 containers of wine. No vehicles were seized. No transportation charges were filed for this past month.
Okay, thank you.
Now, additional information I have to share is everyone should have received an email from the Controller's IT department in regards to new email addresses that will go into effect tomorrow. We've received the approval to establish a new website for the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission. It would be the mdatc.gov. The website is not up yet. It is being developed as we speak. The Comptroller's IT division is developing it. They've set up their servers to house our website. As soon as that is up, the information will be forwarded to you, but the new email addresses will go into effect tomorrow. There will be no change as far as individuals emailing you or you emailing out. You would start using the ATC, the mdatc.gov extension for your email addresses, but your old email addresses for the ATC will continue to work. So there'll be no impact outside of the agency or internally doing your email exchanges. I would like to say thank you very strongly to Bill O'Leary and his group in the IT department for all the help they have given us over the past 6 months in developing and getting this website to the point it is today. And that's what I have.
Okay, thank you. We're going to have an industry presentation by Kevin Addix. Kevin? You're muted, Kevin.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you for the invitation. Let me see if I can share the screen here. So through the magic of technology, let's see if it works. First time sharing on Teams, and it's asking for a full criminal background check.
Oh, wow.
I'll swear to it, you're a good guy.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm not sure you're going to convince my computer, though. So how about this? It says I need to quit and rejoin in order to do this. So, Mr. Chair, do you want to jump to the next item on the agenda, and I'll be back on momentarily?
Kevin, go ahead and log out and log back in. I know we have the other items for discussion are going to take some time, so we'll give Kevin a few minutes to come back in and share his presentation. You're back.
I am back. Let me see if it. Can you see anything on your screen?
Yes.
All right, you can see this,
Yes.
because I cannot. I have no proof that I'm sharing that. Okay, so I'll jump forward. I've used 2 minutes of my time already, so. Very quickly, I'll just introduce myself. Kevin Addix with Grow and Fortify. We work with the Maryland wineries, breweries, and distilleries, also the cideries and the meaderies in the state. So we are helping to promote and manage the organizations for the alcohol trade associations in the state. Those organizations contract with us to do a number of things, and we've got a team to do that, marketing and events directors, someone who's managing special projects, and someone who's managing all the finances for the organizations. So each of these industries, wine, beer, and spirits producers, have their own trade associations, and Grow and Fortify manages those trade associations. We do the really fun stuff of the regular business activity of boards, committees, meeting minutes, and membership. We spend a lot of time working with members of this commission staff and the comptroller's office and other legislators to help folks get up and running in the industry. There's been an incredible growth over the last decade in these industries, which I'll point to in a moment. But there's been incredible movement with respect to the laws evolving. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go on and talk about kind of what our guiding principles are when trying to evolve the laws. Some of the laws which are very, very old and rooted in some deep history. So there's always a discussion every time there's an attempt to change the law. Here's the quick definition of alcohol manufacturer in the state. The laws have evolved from being strictly and solely just a manufacturer to also now allowing, in most of the manufacturer's licenses cases, limited wholesale and limited retail of their own products that they produce. So most of our manufacturers, just to put it in layman's terms, they have a brand house. They've got a tap room or a winery or a distillery front of the house where they're able to sell and serve their products. With certain licenses, they're able to sell and serve other products as well because they've gone through the retail and local liquor licensing system and obtained either a Class B or a Class D, a restaurant or a on and off tavern license. Our industry does not all look the same. Some are located on farms, some are located in industrial warehouse areas, and some are in downtown Main Street areas. And in all cases, they are incredible drivers of economic development, tourism, agriculture, and jobs, which you'll see from some stats in just a moment. I'll be the first one to admit, having seen and been involved in the evolutions of law from when I started almost 20 years ago to now, the laws have changed in immeasurable ways, advancing with consumer interests and advancing with the intense entrepreneurship that's come into Maryland. Our producers produce, distribute, sell, and market their products, all of them within certain limits and conditions. The supporting industries are catching up now that our industries are growing. We now have grain producers growing grain solely, specifically, exclusively for the beer and or spirits industries. We've got vineyards who are independent vineyards unaffiliated with wineries. We have maltsters, people who are malting grain for breweries. We have bottling and canning lines that rove around the state to help package products. And lots of consulting businesses which are helping to support the industry. And I like to joke that the industry's educators, so community colleges and universities, are beginning to hop on or getting hopped up to support the industry, developing new programs. We have the University of Maryland, which after many years of working with them, they've just developed an undergraduate fermentation program, which covers not just alcohol manufacturing, but fermenting of all kinds, cheese, coffee, bread, etc. So we're very excited about that. And there are 2 community colleges which are developing programs specifically to support the craft beverage business. Here's a map which just shows the breadth of the industry. We have alcohol producers now in every single jurisdiction in the state. And I see that Allegheny has been cut off of this map. So I apologize to Allegheny, but we've got a vibrant beer, wine, and spirits industry in every jurisdiction, and it's exciting to see that. 15 years ago, it was centered in Baltimore and maybe one on the Eastern Shore and 1 or 2 in Frederick, and now you can see that there are 30 in Frederick and 35 in Baltimore, and it's just incredible the expansion that we've seen. Some comparisons of our industry versus others. So every member of our industry by national standards and certainly international standards is considered a small producer. So even the largest on our scale, Linganore Wine Cellars and Bordy Vineyards on the winery side, Sagamore Spirit and Secrets on the spirit side, Flying Dog and Heavy Seas. I made a joke once, and then a colleague from California confirmed that in fact they evaporate more product in a year than we make. And that's just because of the size and scale. Our industries have developed a little later than others, and scale is easier when you're the first one in. And so most of our producers are tiny. They've all in some capacity become tourism destinations, and we've seen certain regions, Frederick, Eastern Shore with Shorecraft Beer, and Baltimore begin to market these industries specifically to bring customers in, not just when they're visiting with family or attending a conference, but the state of Maryland is promoting our craft beverage producers in their regional and national ads, because we've seen statistics which show it's an incredible draw. The County of Frederick, their economic development office, when they're pitching corporations to move to Frederick, they pitch the culture, the fact that there are 20 breweries in downtown Frederick. Your employees would love to have these things to do on the weekends, and it's actually helping with their economic development. Our producers live to evolve and develop new processes and products. They're incredibly collaborative, so it's a rare industry where you've got producers helping startups get into the industry, even though they're going to locate right down the street, even though they may also make IPA or Cabernet or rye whiskey. The industry will thrive and continue to grow the more producers there are to bring in that tourism and focus customers' wallets and interests on local products. And also, we're incredibly so adaptive. During COVID, our industries completely flipped upside down, and making use of some of the great developments to ship and deliver products, were able to, in some cases, sustain their business. In other cases, make use of those abilities to survive. when their tap rooms were closed down. They're also incredibly responsive and sensitive to consumer trends. So when a consumer got very used to having product delivering, we've not necessarily seen that interest in delivering product to their doors decrease. We've worked with the industry and with the enforcement staff to make sure that delivery continues to remain safe and effective. But that's one of those things that with the executive order ending July 1st, we were very concerned with consumers still very interested in having product delivered, that we still be able to continue doing that. Very quickly, some stats, and I won't read through all this, but I'll point out some highlights. And first of all, the statistics numbers are from an economic impact study that came out of the Beacon Institute at Salisbury University. The impact and the job numbers are indirect as well as direct. So it's employee workers at breweries, wineries, distilleries, but also beyond. It's the employees, it's the employees of other businesses that are supported through local products. There are retail stores and restaurants and delivery firms which are dedicated solely to providing our products to the customer. So we're very excited to see that. The biggest jump that we've seen has been in breweries the last 10 years. And I was reminded right before this presentation that my number is wrong by half. There are 50 breweries in planning right now that are members of our organization, and that's just members of our organization. I will say that the nature of those breweries is they're going to be small. We are not seeing entrants coming in wanting to be the next Heavy Seas or Flying Dog, some of the big brand names, or Union. They are looking to sell and service directly to their immediate community. So the jobs here are really incredible. The tax impact to the state through excise taxes, through retail taxes, sales and use tax, are really adding a lot into the state. When you look at these and add these up, it's a very sizable industry. When you add acreage to it, you know, what acres of farmland do these produce? It's 2,500 to 3,000 acres statewide are locked up by the industry, producing product for the industry. So that, and there are farmers and other folks that manage that. So you begin to see the indirect and secondary, tertiary impacts.
So, I'm sorry, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Just about the 2 slides back in terms of fiscal year 20 and kind of COVID. I'm just curious about the COVID impact. Like, are those numbers for the FY20 low for COVID or are adjusted? I'm curious about like how that might impact the kind of overall kind of economic impact.
So, and that's a great question. And I'll say that we're following the state's fiscals. So this is ending June 30th of 20.
Okay.
And so you're just seeing the first few months impact of COVID on this. I think when we see the 21 numbers, we'll begin to have a real clear picture. And you know, it's a big discussion to have. Certain segments of the industry lost a lot of ground. Folks that were in, breweries that were in retail areas versus on farms. The retail areas tended to be in city centers. City centers had higher COVID rates and were much slower to reopen. And so some of those businesses were the first ones to bow out. Whereas our more farm-based segments of the industry, some of the farm wineries, farm breweries, were able to make great advantage of the fact that the public wanted to get out, but do it distanced in a way that you couldn't in a downtown area where your tap room may only have 10 or 15 chairs. On a farm, you may have 30 or 40 acres, and so everybody can spread out. And so we began to see the balance of revenue shift. So I'm anxious to see the numbers as well.
So I guess on that same point then, so like the more than 25 in the planning stage, does that account for the kind of new, like are those new entrants backfilling those that were forced out as a result of COVID?
It is, and we were actually surprised. We've had an uptick in the last 2 months of individuals interested in joining the industry. I will say that when we talk with them, their plans and their scale are much smaller. So I would imagine that their plans evolved during COVID from whatever they thought they could afford and thought they could be to now being a smaller a smaller business, just in terms of how big they plan to be, how many barrels they plan to produce,
Got it.
how many acres they plan to grow if they're a winery. It's all at the moment a little smaller than it had been.
Thank you.
Before you go, Kevin, on this slide, like where it says about the Maryland breweries, I understand that that's what you all sold as far as gallons, but when it comes to the impact, the money and the jobs and the taxes, does that include distributors and does that include restaurants and liquor stores?
So the 637 million impact does include all sales of Maryland beer. The supporting numbers, and I've been involved in many economic impact studies, and they are what they are. So there's a model, and the questions that the researchers ask are, how do you buy your product, and let's follow that chain down the line. And so yes, wholesalers are included in that. Retailers are included in that, as are farmers and when you add tourism in, and this was one of the things we got to see the economic impact study before they added tourism factor in and after. When you add tourism and people are coming to Frederick to tour craft beer, and there are 10 that are walkable in downtown Frederick. Now you're adding room nights, you're adding heads and beds, you're adding the taxes on that, you're adding, because you don't tend to go to a brewery and stay at a brewery, you're having a beer or two, then you're having dinner or lunch, shopping, all those things. So it involves the larger impact. I would imagine, Betty, to your point, when the wholesalers do an economic impact study, it's going to be, also a very, very large impact number because of all of the many stores, all of the many restaurants, all of the many suppliers, the truckers, the refrigeration, the contractors who are keeping everything cool. So that's where that number comes from. It is a comprehensive number that includes secondary, tertiary, indirect.
So conversely, the wine numbers would be based on the same thing, correct?
The wine numbers would be as well. And interestingly, the wineries are farther advanced in terms of their laws over the last 10 years. So wineries have been able to ship their products far and wide. So if you look at the gallons numbers compared to spirits and beer, the wineries' economic impact punches above their weight, above their class. And it's because they have a potentially broader reach for their products, and also the products, all of these products are premium products. So, when you start adding it up, a 4-pack of Maryland beer can be $18. An average bottle of Maryland wine can be $20 to $40. Spirits as well on the higher end. So the numbers add up pretty quickly. Other questions on this slide? This goes much better with samples, and I'm sorry I couldn't provide them. Haven't figured out how to do that on meats. So in response to the industry really increasing and a whole bunch of new people getting into the business, we've always encouraged folks to have their staff certified under TIPS or TAM or Maryland's Best from the Restaurant Association. But just because of the incredible influx, we developed our own course and had that approved 18 months, almost 2 years ago by the state, called STARS, Safe Tasting and Responsible Sales. And we built this course to address a lot of the unique factors of the industry, the fact that our manufacturers are able to attend farmers markets, right? So now you have product that's potentially on the road. It includes delivery and all other pieces of it as well. We decided to split the course into two. The course is available free to everyone in the industry. And so whether or not your law in your local jurisdiction requires that everyone in the tap room or at the brewery be certified, or only one person per shift, whatever it may be, we think everybody should go through the training to understand what to look for with serving responsibly, how to maintain and manage product, how to maintain and manage control, in the industry. And so we've created the organization. If you want to spring for the exam and get certified, we've subsidized that rate. So it's $25 for members of the industry to get trained. And we've just in the 1 year, we've trained 300, and we're trying our best to encourage everyone to be trained. Our organizations are working through codes of conduct, and we imagine one of those points in the code will be everybody should have gone through an alcohol certification and training program. So some of our top goals, first is to create an environment where the industry is competitive, addressing consumer interests for new products and services. And we see that as kind of core to what it is that we as Grow and Fortify and our organizations are basically tasked and chartered to do. And that is to figure out where the consumer is going and try to move the laws in that direction. And that can take the form of all manner of things. There were discussions the last number of years in the legislature about adjusting the licensing a bit to allow more beer to be sold for on-premise consumption and or to go and or through distribution, because we're seeing different interests come about among the industry. And then, of course, always making sure that no matter what we're doing, whether it's creating events or helping new breweries get open, that we're doing it in the most safe and sustainable way. Some of the trends, and I mentioned this before, the producers are becoming smaller in size, both square footage and production. They're focusing a bit more. 10 years ago, if you opened up one of these alcohol manufacturers, you had to make something for everybody. You had to create an experience so that no matter who walked through your door, you had something to make them very happy. Now we're seeing that there are enough manufacturers that some are focusing just on rum, some are focusing just on IPAs or sour beer. It becomes their specialty. Some are focusing just on Bordeaux blends for wine. They don't feel compelled to make something for every customer that comes through. Some really creative, innovative business models that we've seen opening up, which are combining all types of things that are allowable under law, but hadn't really been contemplated and hadn't been discussed before. So we spend a lot of time talking with Jeff Kelly and other folks, Lou Berman in the office, just to figure out, okay, how do we do this within the boundaries of the law? And it's so incredible to see some of the creative innovations that are coming out. Breweries, wineries, distilleries, meaderies, cideries are focusing more on their tap rooms and less on going out to festivals and events to promote their products. We're finally getting critical mass where we're not having to teach the public as much about our product. They know, we just have to attract them to our location. So many of the new entrants are second career. It's a much more diverse entrant than we had a couple of years ago, so we're thrilled about that. There's a high number of, we have LGBTQ, we've got a few folks in the pipeline who are building experiences specifically for that audience. Same thing with African-American owned businesses, which we're behind on, and excited to see that segment of the industry increase. Higher price points, as I mentioned, stronger tie-in to local products, because again, that's what differentiates our products from beer that you can buy from anywhere else, is there is a local craft to it and there's a local component. Greater emphasis on quality. Talked about collaboration and diversification as well. Very quickly on this one, top industry goals: meet consumer demand, which is changing, and it has changed so incredibly fast over the last 18 months. Trying to generate more and more job opportunities. There's an interest among our producers in creating parity among the different licenses, because some of them are getting additional licenses. Breweries are becoming distilleries, because after you make beer, you can make spirits quite easily. Making beer is the first step of making whiskey. So we see folks getting both of those licenses and then wondering why I can sell under this one and why I can't sell under this one. So trying to bring parity, and then balancing the needs to make sure that everything we're doing creates and sustains a kind of management of the health aspects of selling and serving alcohol, but also the control that comes with that, making sure it's not everywhere all the time, unlimited and cheap. And I think that what we've seen in our industry is it's limited, it's higher priced, it's super creative. We still have, for breweries, it always cracks me up. I don't know if anyone on this call stood in line the first time iPhones were available. I was a geek and I stood in line to get it. That happens every weekend at breweries when they release new products because they're only making this much of it. And if you wanted a, triple IPA with a certain hop or a rainbow sherbet, sour beer, which is $20 a 4-pack, you have to get in line, which is pretty cool to see that in the industry. All the reasons why we support the industry and why we encourage the support of industry. We get calls regularly from towns and cities who want to work with us to figure out how to get 2 or 3 breweries, wineries, or distilleries. And so we love that. We go in, we meet with them, we create seminars that they can host. We work with them to create incentives to bring producers downtown, because when you put it downtown, much like we're seeing in Havre de Grace and Aberdeen and Bel Air, people come to those areas for those breweries. The Eastern Shore towns, you look at Berlin, which is becoming a craft beer capital of the Eastern Shore. It's just very exciting to see that. And then I'm always available as a resource if there are ever any questions about brewing, winemaking, distilling. I didn't mention much about mead or cider. Meaderies and cideries. So mead is honey wine. Cider is generally made from apples and pears. Those can be breweries or wineries due to a recent series of law changes. So we've got healthy segments of those industries as well. And we're starting to see some low alcohol kombucha coming into Maryland as well. So really, really diverse industry, and look forward to working with everybody going forward.
Thank you, Kevin. Very informative. Anybody on the commission have any other questions? If not, we're going to move into discussions concerning regulations. Commissioner Betty Buck.
Yep. Oh, okay. Okay, so just let go on.
Can you hear Rob? Can you guys hear Rob?
Now,
Can you guys?
I can hear somebody.
Audio problems.
Go ahead, Rob, and try.
Okay, quick question. Are there innovations that are indigenous only to Maryland?
That's a great question. So two things. So there are products that are known to be produced or made here that we're becoming known for. So that's certainly true with Maryland rye whiskey, which has a history in the state, and we're seeing an incredible interest from new entrants in rekindling Maryland's dominance of the rye whiskey standpoint. And a lot of these have to do with what's in it. So there's a whole group within the industry that says that Maryland rye whiskey's got to use Maryland rye, actual local grain. And so we're seeing a big push for development of facilities to actually process that and supply that. With wine, in general, wine is known to be about where it's from. So you buy Bordeaux wine because it was grown in Bordeaux, and Barolo because it was grown in northern Italy. And same thing with Maryland wine. We've gotten in the industry a reputation among wine writers and other folks of having 90-point wines regularly, which attracts people to that. We have a Maryland Wine Explorer Club within the Wineries Association where we're kind of collecting some of the best wines that we've tasted and offering them through our wineries in kind of a club format, and people are loving that. With beer, there's so much collaboration. There are collaboration beers, cross-country, worldwide collaborations all of the time, and so it's hard to keep secrets in beer, but there's some really, really amazing local beer. There is a local hop, a native hop that we are working to register with the Plant Registration Division of USDA and start using that hop exclusively in Maryland. So we're very excited about that. The hop name is Catoctin Heritage. So you'll start seeing that on cans and bottles pretty soon.
Anybody else have any questions for Kevin? If not, once again, thank you, Kevin. Barbara, thank you for fielding that question. And we're going to move to Commissioner Betty Buck.
Good afternoon. I think most of you know, Barbara and I have had the pleasure of a fun ride along in Baltimore City with our agent. And one of the things I found most interesting, I'm still playing catch up when it comes to the tobacco side of our commission. I'm pretty well versed on the alcohol side after growing up in alcohol my whole life. And one of the things that bothered me the most was they don't have the same, our agents don't have the same protection when it comes to tobacco that they do with alcohol. As I witnessed, and now you're telling us about how many more problems they're having with the tobacco side, this makes it an even more pressing issue as far as I'm concerned. When it comes to alcohol, they have the rights to go in anywhere and look at alcohol, look for alcohol. When it comes to tobacco, basically they have to depend on their ability to talk their way into the back room. They don't have the same rights as they do inspecting the alcohol. And I think that we need to look at that and look at how we can get them parity with the alcohol regulations and the tobacco regulations. And one of the things that a lot of the senators and representatives have said to me through this approval process was, please don't do what was done to them before. Please come to them ahead of time and talk to them about what bills we need for our agents and for the regulations so that we can work together to get these things passed and not plop them in their face when we get to the legislature. So I would like us to please see what we need to do, and probably the best person to look at it would be Jeff Kelly, to see exactly what do we have for alcohol and what do our agents need for tobacco so that they're at parity and everybody has the same rules going in so that our agents aren't having to watch their backs when they're looking for that.
Betty, I just let you know it's starting next week. The Field Enforcement Division and myself is going to be starting meetings concerning the creation of new regulations.
Okay.
So information like you just brought out will be addressed. We will bring forth suggestions. We have one assistant AG that's going to be participating, possibly another one out of the Baltimore office, in helping creating regulations that our agents feel they need. And as we develop those regulations, they will, of course, be shared with the commission before we put them into the register to be formulated and put
Okay.
into place.
That's just real important. Our agents need all the support they can get. They're doing a great job.
Anybody else have any comments? Okay, we'll move to our next agenda item, discussion of duties of the commission and the creation of committees. Commissioner Barbara Wall.
Thank you, Al. We may have lost Rob again. We'll see if he dials back in. So we've been reviewing for some time now what we have been given as our identified duties. And if we parse it out, what we see is that we need to educate the public. We need to assure appropriate labeling. We need to conduct studies, and we need to develop best practices in a number of areas. So each one of those areas can be drilled down a little bit, but it's basically 4 buckets of areas that we need to make sure that we are addressing as we move forward. Now, I think it was 1 or 2 meetings ago that we were talking to someone, was it Dawn, who is working with us to support our efforts here? So I think perhaps a starting point would be to see in what areas do we have the support that's already in place, and we can just get information about how that's going before we make changes, and then see if there's any areas that perhaps aren't being adequately addressed yet to meet these requirements, these duties that we have.
So this is Dawn, and I'm on, and I'm certainly happy to help you or provide you with anything you need.
Hi, Dawn. Thank you.
I would, Barbara, I would jump in and say, I talked with Senator Addie Eckert, who is a nurse, has worked with a lot of the issues, mental health issues, alcohol addiction issues, and she's willing to help lead us in a direction of where studies have been done. There are studies at NIH, University of Maryland has done studies, Johns Hopkins has done studies. So as we identify the issues, I think with the help of Dawn, we can go out and we can look and see who's already done studies that are germane to the issues we're concerned about, and share those studies among ourselves, and then come back and do what the legislature has asked us to do. I also reached out to Senator Ben Cramer, and we had a conversation on Monday, being that he was one of the sponsors of the legislation that created this commission, and he also said, please feel free to pick his brain and find, as I told him, we want to make sure we meet legislative intent. And so I think what you're suggesting is right on track, and we just need to spend a little more time fine tuning it and then moving forward.
So maybe what we can do is, I'd be happy to talk with you, Dawn, one-on-one about which areas here your group is already kind of ticking off. And then perhaps, I know there was some conversation about maybe starting some committees moving forward to look at some of the areas that aren't being addressed yet. And I'd say maybe, oh, there's Rob. Let's see what Rob. Oh, okay. Rob's listening. He's just nonverbal with us. So that's good. So I would say our first standpoint is going to be one of assessment, to see what we're doing well and what we're missing out on. And if anybody else wants to jump in and participate with that process, that would be great too.
Well, we appreciate you taking that on. And as you said, anybody else who is interested and wants to jump in, we'd love to have them join us.
Thanks, Barbara. That would be great.
Thank you, Dawn.
Barbara, do you have anything else you want to talk about at this time?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Tony, we have the next agenda item is Memorandum of Understanding. Tony, I think you're muted, or I can't hear you anyway. You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As you all know, June 30th is the expiration of the current MOU that's in place between the ATC and the Comptroller's Office. I've been in discussions with Jeff Kelly, who's the representative of the Comptroller's Office side, going back and forth in negotiations on how we're going to proceed with the MOU, and I'm going to turn it over to him to explain where we are in the status of the current MOU and where we're going to go forward July 1.
Thanks, Tony. Hi, everybody. It's been, the negotiations has been actually very even. I think we've both seen that this is beneficial to us right now while this transitory period is still occurring. One of the things that's interesting is we intended in the very beginning, in addition to a lot of services that are provided to the ATC, the Office of the Comptroller, the work between the agents that was shared some of the responsibilities of the parties is continuing, but we're starting to see a little division that would occur naturally, where the ATC agents kind of gravitate to doing ATC work, and the Comptroller agents start gravitating more to what they would typically do as well. So we met earlier on to define our managing for results output expectations, changing them to represent each agency. We both met with the comptroller has met with, and the ATC, some members of the ATC, actually Tony's office, have met with the Department of Budget Management to put in a supplemental budget request for this current fiscal year that's in July, because as we've been saying all along, it's woefully underfunded. We put in a supplemental budget request, well, not so much, but exceptionally some of the issues, and we're going to apparently talk about that in the fall, as well as modifying the request for FY23, setting a target request for FY23. As far as the MOU goes, it was easy. Tony and I said, yeah, it seems like it's working for both of us. I talked to the front office of the comptroller's office and said, it seems like it's working for both of us. We'd like to extend it for a period of 12 months. Manny Welsh is the chief of staff for Comptroller Franchot. And he said, yeah, you know what, that sounds good. Let's proceed in that direction. So we wanted to get this in front of you guys, because what we expect it to look like is the identical MOU that we have now, with the expiration date changing from midnight June 30, 2021 to midnight June 30, 2022. And we're hoping to get your approval on that, so that once we have the paperwork itself actually completed, we can just move to signatures and you don't have to meet again. But I don't have to think.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Kelly?
No.
Okay, I take a motion to approve the extension of the MOU.
So moved.
Need a second, please?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly, I have one question. I did get a copy of the budget, and I agree with you, it's underfunded. The request for supplemental budget, can you share with us what kind of dollars you were asking for?
I don't have that because please understand, my role right now is like an extreme advisor to the ATC, but I'm not that person, and Tony is. But even more secret, even more specifically, there's a young lady in our office who does a phenomenal job for us and did all the yeoman's work of putting this thing together. But I will say that the immediate budget now was to increase staffing, increase our agents to probably, I think the request was maybe somewhere in the area of 8 to 10 additional agents and a supervisor to create 3 solid squads, was to ask for 3 additional administrators so we can start assuming some of our own HR work and IT work and finance and procurement work. And then to start getting into the nitty gritty moving forward, like because of this MOU, we have cars to drive, computers and telephones to use, desks to sit at. Without that, we have nothing. We don't have equipment. So our projected target for 2023 is to start getting this stuff, to start funding that. So there are some dollar amounts to purchase where we need to purchase and maintain or replace where we need to do that as well. It took a lot of work. I shouldn't say it was a lot of work to do it, for this young lady, Jennifer Bresler, was able to lead us through that, as is often the case, and put that together. So, Tony, I don't know if Jen might be able to help us with that at a later point. We can report back to the commission.
Yeah, that'd be great, because it's very obvious that as a state, we're in a good cash position, and now is the time to make those supplemental budget requests.
Yes, sir. Great.
Thank you very much. Anybody else have any questions, Mr. Kelly?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody have any new business? Are you shaking their heads? Eric, you're can't hear you. You're still muted, Eric. Okay. If not, if there's no new business, take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Barbara, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.